comments. It's hard for our recorder to hear what we're saying, and she wants to make sure that she hears what the person at the podium is saying. So if you can, please hold your comments, and we just thank you all for coming, and we'd appreciate it. Everybody was respectful, and so at this time I'll take public comments for anything that is not on the agenda. Is there anybody there? Want to look through the cards?
All right, I guess I'll start. My name is John Parker. I'm nervous, I gotta read this. I'm a citizen of Lassen County. I've worked my whole life, raised a family. I'm a man of faith, political conservative, decorated war veteran. I have problems that are ruining my wife and I's lives, but this county consistently tells me there's nothing they can do. I wish for once they would say, we will try to do something, but they won't explain why they can't do anything. My wife and I finally got our own house to retire in. Almost never seen her so happy, but we unknowingly moved in next door to a bunch of meth heads, squatters, drug dealer, etc. We had to endure pit bulls, almost constant noise, threats, people stealing from us. Now there is junk, travel trailers everywhere with people living in them who are not supposed to be. This is why I couldn't sell my house. I was going to get up out of here and move to Idaho. We've got a big drug dealer who revs up a big industrial chainsaw right next to my house in the evening on Mother's Day, out of retaliation for me calling the sheriff. So this noise is a big issue. This is a guy, known drug dealer, has a so-called woodcutting business in a residential neighborhood. According to one of his own buddies, he does drugs during the day with the neighbor, but then he fires his chainsaw up at night. So my wife, whose health has not been the greatest, and myself, we've had to listen to this for over a year because there's nothing they can do about it. When I called Protective Services that the old lady next door was being abused, she said, that doesn't sound like abuse to me. Not long after, he stole his mother's life savings and maxed out her credit cards. She had to move out of her own house for her own safety from her own son and this mob of drug addicts that he let in, and he's not even on the title. He has no authority, but the county let him stay. Even as he's up for charges of theft and elder abuse, he gets the house. Other people now have full power of attorney, and thankfully now the original squatters are out. So these people have notified the sheriff that they don't want the son letting more sheriff's department, that they don't want the son letting more people in. But the county has not even recognized their power of attorney and are letting new people in who after 30 days the county will probably recognize them as legal squatters and say, there's nothing we can do. Well, all this first started happening. I went to my District 3 rep and explained it to him, asked him if I couldn't get this resolved, if I could come back to him. He said yes, so I came back to his office last week. This is only the second time I've ever been to his office, and he sent me out, didn't want to talk about it. I'm asking the board to investigate all of this, the lack of communication, respect, and transparency. This has been going on for 16 months. I'm tired of hearing from every county official there's nothing we can do. Really? Absolutely nothing? I had been going to code enforcement for a long time, and the head of planning and the head of code enforcement, feel free to interrupt if I'm over my time. So the head of planning and the head of code enforcement consistently said there's nothing they can do. All right, thank you.
Galen?
Yes, Board, thank you. Galen Norwood, Planning and Building Services Department. I just wanted to let the board know that the Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan was approved by the Department of Water Resources on February 27th. Their approval was quite long. It was 61 pages long because it came with a lot of recommendations and comments and commentary. But it also came with a reminder that the 5-year update, the periodic update, is due January 27th, 2027. 5 years from the original approval, not 5 years from this approval. And came with some recommendations, some recommended corrective actions, as well, but it was a big step, at least getting it approved, and so I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. We've updated our website. The approval letter is on our website. If anyone's curious about what it says, they can take a look on the Planning and Building Services Department portion of the county website and see that approval letter. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Carla Dollar?
Good morning, my name is...
Thank you. You already did, I interrupted you.
Okay. My time starts again, right?
Yeah.
Good morning, my name is Carla Dollar. I am a resident of Lassen County for over 20 years. Today I come to speak regarding a comment made by Mr. Abba, an elected official during a public session regarding a former county employee performing her official duties while employed. While Mr. Abba is not my supervisor, he represents the county I live in, work in, invest in, and have represented, and I greatly love. Because of my work schedule, it is an inconvenient time to come to the supervisor's meeting. I rely on Sam Williams for my information. If there was a more transparent way of involving your constituents, it might be beneficial to make that happen. Mr. Abba made a comment regarding another Lassen County resident while they were not in his presence that quite honestly I hope she has already filed a sexual harassment claim against him. Over the last couple of weeks I've asked about our Board of Supervisors. I was surprised to have heard that Mr. Abba's comment is the norm in the office. I hope that this is false. To think, instead of spending thousands of dollars for my multiple degrees, I only needed to show up for my job interview in a miniskirt. I was hoping to have heard over the last couple weeks since of Sam's article that there would have been a public apology made. I'm not aware of there being one. From what I understand, Mr. Abba has been working to help drive some economic opportunity in Lassen County, which we so desperately need. The comment made is so repulsive, so reprehensible, and not something that any of the good that he has done is not going to be remembered. Instead, his comments demonstrate the value that he has placed on women. His words, a direct line to his thoughts and the core of his being. This will be Mr. Abba's legacy. The only thing that I think that could provide some redemption would be his resignation. My only other disgust lies in the fact that after Mr. Abba made such a wildly inappropriate comment that our other county supervisors sat in silence. From what I've heard and read, not a single supervisor spoke up to correct Mr. Abba. Again, I hope that this is false. This is where I feel compelled, as a history major, to remind you, women, historically, will pick their battles wisely. When they organize, they make radical changes in their local government. I would advise our county supervisors to remember that half of your voting population is the very group that Mr. Abba grossly offended. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Terry Lynn.
Good morning. I'm Terry Lynn Beechek, and I'm just here to introduce the community and everybody to the Lassen County Republican Assembly. We've been coming, but we haven't really formally introduced ourselves. So what I thought I'd do is just read what our core beliefs are and let you guys know it's $25 annually to be a member. Everybody's welcome. That's a registered Republican. If you're not registered and would like to register Republican, we can help you do that. That's one of the things we do. And people who hold office are welcome to join. You just can't hold, a board seat. So, okay. Lassen County Republican Assembly, what we believe. We believe that man's rights flow from the Creator, and the rights of life, liberty, and justice cannot be legitimately granted or rescinded by men. We believe in the guiding force of moral law as expressed by the Judeo-Christian ethic and contained in the Holy Scriptures of these historic faiths. We believe that the only answer to the current moral decline that our nation now faces is a return to the beliefs and standards of morality which our founding fathers placed into the Constitution. We believe the framers of that document, when President Adams stated, "This Constitution will not work except with a religious people," we understand that the concept of self-government begins with governing oneself first, then family, community, state, and nation. We believe in the rights of parents to a quality education for their children. We support parental choice to create competition among the schools. We believe that the federal tax system is abusive to the American people while discouraging investment and growth. We believe in growth-oriented tax policies which would gradually eliminate punitive income taxes and move our tax system in the direction of use taxes and sales taxes only. We believe in the free enterprise system as the best hope for men and women to fulfill their economic hopes and dreams. We know that the free market is the most efficient and the least costly system to deliver the highest quality goods and services at the lowest price to the consumer. We will support only those who support the free enterprise system through legislation to reduce or eliminate intrusive government intervention in the marketplace. We believe that the traditional American family, defined as any persons related by blood, marriage, and of a man and a woman and or adoption, is the cornerstone of our American society, and the government is duty-bound to protect the integrity of the family unit through legislation and taxation policies. We believe that the preborn child is a human being deserving the full protection of the law, national defense, right to bear arms, and so on. Anyway, we need you all.
Okay,
Oh, geez.
all the other cards that I have are on the items. Is there anybody else that would like? You're not on one of the items that are on the agenda? Okay, come on up.
Andrea Traphagen, and I'm asking that the board put on the agenda the containers to have public input and to appeal this fee. And I went ahead and looked up online and the different counties and what they're charging. And one of the things that I saw was inconsistency. They're all over the place. Modoc County is 0, Shasta 75, Mono 99, Tehama 208, Yuba County 270, Placer County 200 to 500, depends on the size, Lassen County 350. Although, when I looked online, it's a Lassen County building permit fee for projects valued at $13,000 or less is $300. I've been told that I'm wrong about the $350, that it's $380, so I don't know if that's true. I heard $350 at the last meeting. But according to the California Building Code, section 3115, a building permit is now required for placing a cargo container, and we all know that. Each local jurisdiction sets its own permit fees based on factors like container size, intended use, location, and the county has that decision. So the other thing that I wanted to put is that the cost range typically can go from $15 to $500. And they're really looking for high traffic areas. Some counties, it was important that the containers just be painted and blend in. They weren't making this a very big deal. And it's the county, you have the decision making to decide whether or not we are going to charge this fee, as high as it is. And I would like the community to be able to have some input in this, and that's why I'm asking for it to be put on the agenda. And I feel that the other thing is that as a county, we're not looking at why we have all these containers, and it's typically because getting through the process is expensive. It's really hard to put up a building, and a lot of these people, this is all they can afford. And I don't know very many containers, you know, that are 13,000 or above, and, you know, in their cost. But basically, we need to look at, you know, how we're gonna do this. Not all counties are anchoring them, not all counties are doing all this. It's really a discretionary thing, especially on the fees. We need to start looking at how can we help everyone? What can we do for people? The people coming forward, if they can't put up a building and this is all that they can do, because this is all that they can afford, because our county is pricing us out of the ability to build, then we need to start doing something to help the people. Because right now, we're not. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that would like to talk? Okay. Seeing none. We'll move on to, D1.
Mr. Chairman, I will be recusing myself from the item.
Thank you.
We're gonna skip it.
Good morning, Chairman, Board.
All right, just a second. Mr. Alvarez, so.
Yeah, you can go sit up there. Galen Norwood, Planning and Building Services Department, good morning. This item was continued from December 17th to today. This is a protest of a non-renewal. So basically, the county has a policy, Williamson Act policy. When the state stopped funding the program, the county came up with policies. One was to non-renew contracts that enter into conservation easements. There have been 19 non-renewals because of conservation easements over the years since the policy was adopted in 2012. A lot of those resulted in a partial withdrawal of the notice of non-renewal. So basically, if the conservation easement didn't include all of the land, then it could be withdrawn for all but the part that was in the conservation easement. This particular conservation easement includes all the lands that are in the Williamson Act contract, so a partial withdrawal can't be done. But the board continued this to today and asked for some tax information, which is in your packet. There's 11 bullets in your packet on tax information related to the project. I won't go through all of it, but basically the program represents an approximately $800,000 loss to the state. That would be the loss, but there's some other bullets. We also have the county assessor here today. Really, that's what we had, was to come back with you with this information and let you make a decision on the project. So if you don't have any information for me, the assessor is available.
I don't have any questions. Not at this time.
Supervisor Ingram, do you have any questions?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Robert Kramer?
Yeah. Actually, before we get going, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to introduce, there's some letters that I need to introduce into the record, I forgot. I have the letters from Ken Gregory, Daryl and Callie Wood, 2005 Family Trust, Pete's Valley Ranch, Rob Kramer, Spencer Depty, Robert and Vicky Pyle, Shirley MacArthur, and George MacArthur. And I would like to introduce these into the record, and I have copies. Here's for the record.
Thank you, Caitlin.
There's some more copies here as well for the public. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we have all these.
These were forwarded to you last night.
Correct, I've read them all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I'm Rob Kramer. We have a ranch in Big Valley, one of the ranches that's been non-renewed in the Williamson Act. And I'd like to start off, I have a letter from NEDCO, the Lassen County Farm Bureau, in support of reinstating the Williamson Act on conservation easement grounds. Agriculture is the backbone of Lassen County economy. The Lassen County Board of Supervisors has for decades supported local family farmers and ranchers with the Williamson Act, a voluntary program between an agriculture landowner and the County of Lassen, just as it occurs in 51 other counties in California, to tax the land that is based on Williamson Act valuation. The landowner enters a 10-year contract that renews each year to keep the land in agricultural production. It is important to note that a Williamson Act does not prevent an agricultural property from being divided up into small properties as long as they comply with zoning requirements. On the other hand, an agricultural conservation easement is the sale of development rights of the land. The land within an agricultural easement cannot be divided into small properties forever, thus retaining the size and scale of both the unit of land, both for it as agriculture production and for other values that the land provides. In the case of the Kramer Ranch, vast areas of wildlife habitat, especially for waterfowl on grazing lands, a single larger economically viable family ranch operation provides stability to Lassen County, while multiply smaller ranch properties may be viable, but when the market downturns, those properties are likely to become abandoned agricultural properties. In addition, many smaller properties require much more of Lassen County's services than a single large ranch with a conservation easement on it. And a Williamson Act contract, I would remind you, is what is stated in the staff report, that Lassen County is the only county in California that non-renews Williamson Act contracts when the landowner enters into an agricultural easement. Therefore, I ask the Board of Supervisors at this time to rescind the Board Resolution 12050 and remains true to your long-standing support to Lassen County agriculture. So that was from NEDCO of the Lassen County Farm Bureau.
All right.
Okay. All right. On a personal note, I just wanted to add that the families that we're talking about here that have been affected by this whatever this policy is, they're all long-standing agricultural families and will continue to drive all their income from agriculture. And if the Williamson Act is here to make it easier for agriculture to stay sustainable in Lassen County and California, then these are the particular families that we're talking about, the ranches. We're no different than anybody else just because we've used made a management decision to do a conservation easement. It's no reason to take us out of the Williamson Act and tax us at a 100% increase in our taxes. Thank you, guys.
Is there any other public comment on this?
I didn't fill out a thing, I apologize.
Okay, you can come to the podium and state your name, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Robin Hansen, and I work for California Rangeland Trust, which does conservation easements, and I'm also married into a ranching family in Lassen County and grew up in a ranching family in Yolo County. And really, I just want to bring to the forefront that as a county, you have 2 primary tools to influence local industries, incentives, and taxes. You raise taxes on things you want to discourage, and you offer tax breaks or incentives for activities you want to promote. By choosing to remove ag land and conservation easements from the Williamson Act, you are effectively increasing taxes on that land and eliminating the incentives for ag activity in this county. The Williamson Act does not prohibit all subdivision of the land, but it does require that the land be used in ag production. A conservation easement does not require ag production on the land, but it does prohibit subdividing the land. So these two contracts are separate and different, but work together to promote and incentivize landowners to continue productive use of this land. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to talk? Okay, this time I'll close the public comment, and Nick, I would like to hear from you.
Excuse me. Good morning, Nick Ciaglio, Lassen County Assessor. What I would like to request, Chairman Neely, members of the board, is that my chief appraiser, Ed Fitzhenry, respond specifically to any of the detail within our cost assessment and analysis, which are, to the best of our ability, approximations based on what we're able to forward predict on values as it relates to taxes, as it relates to loss of taxes, and a differential between Williamson Act values and Prop 13 values. With that being said, we provided a detail of, I hate saying an estimate, but that's exactly what it is, as it relates to enrolled values for the Williamson Act land versus what would be the counter equivalent of a Prop 13 value. And with that, we had provided, in summary, bear with me, that approximately 325,000 acres are currently in the Williamson Act, or the Land Conservation Act. The cumulative Prop 13 land value for that total acreage is just over $175 million. For 2024 tax year, the Williamson Act enrolled values, which is specifically applicable to lands that are available to enter into Williamson Act agreements. It does not include buildings, home site, homes. Of that, we have $70 million enrolled for property taxes for 2024, with a differential of approximately $100 million in 2024. At a 1% tax rate, that differential equates to $1 million. Of that, the standing ratio is approximately 80%. Of that 1%, or $800,000, goes back to the state. 20% approximately stays within the county. That 20% would equate to $200,000, plus or minus. The overall Prop 13 land value, and this is a trend over all the 351,000 acres. Their Prop 13 per acre value is, again, approximately 541 acres on average. There are going to be lower, depending on the nature of the agricultural activity. There are going to be some that are higher, depending on a higher and best use. Within the Williamson Act restricted, that cost per acre is at or about $217 per acre. Of the roughly 19, I believe, Williamson Act contracts that were partially or removed since 2012, as Galen had mentioned. The assessment on those values came to the tune, it was 62 parcels, my apology, 15,000 acres as of 2024 that were non-renewed due to conservation easements. My apologies. Prop 13 value for those non-renewed parcels were just under $10 million. At a 1% tax rate, that's roughly $99,000. And again, at the 80-20 ratio, the county received a revenue, if it were in Prop 13, of roughly $20,000, with the remaining $80,000 going to the state. With the Williamson Act applicable to those potential 62 parcels for reentry or reconsideration, the general fund would have received $7,900, with a remaining $31,000 going to the state. Roughly a difference of $12,000 for fiscal year 2024. These are estimates. The Prop 13 values are confident. Those we have in the background, and we enroll the lower of either the Prop 13 base year value, the restricted value, or a Prop 8 value on restricted lands that are subject to the conservation, that are subject to the Williamson Act program. And that is basically all I have, other than any questions you may have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Galen, I have a question for you. So, in 2013, the Kramer Ranch, they did a conservancy easement.
Conservation easement, yes, and that was,
2013.
I believe it was 2013,
Okay.
don't quote me on that, but,
Well, this is-
the board ordered a partial withdrawal of the notice, so it wasn't the whole ranch. And so because it wasn't the whole ranch, the parts that weren't in the conservation easements were allowed to stay in the Williamson Act. And just that particular conservation easement was removed from the Williamson Act program, so it didn't include the whole ranch. This conservation easement includes all the lands that are in the Williamson Act.
All right, so when they took the first conservancy, they knew that the county was removing property out of the Williamson Act.
Well, this was, when the policies were adopted, notices were sent to all, when the board was adopting the policies and procedures, to all contract holders in the county. And we were to the Farm Bureau and the Cattlemen's Association. And so it was well advertised that the board was working on policies and procedures. So yes, there was knowledge, there should have been knowledge then. And in particular, when that conservation easement was entered into, and there was a notice of non-renewal, and it was protested by the Kramers, they had notice of that as well.
What year was
And,
that?
and they, and so now that they took the conservation, money now, they should have been fully aware that Lassen County had this policy. Is that correct?
The ranch went through it in 2013. So it was the same thing in 2013. It was protested, similar to this protest, and it resulted in a notice of partial withdrawal of the notice of non-renewal because it didn't include the whole ranch. So that the Kramer Ranch was aware of that.
So they had a choice to take it or leave it?
To the conservation easement? It was their choice to enter into a conservation easement.
Supervisor Linder?
Taylor, is it true we're the only county who doesn't renew Williamson Act for conservation easements?
As far as
in the
I'm
entire
aware,
state?
as far as I'm aware, yes.
And the Williamson Act requires ag production as opposed to
It-
the conservation easement does not require ag production?
I can't speak, conservation easements are different, it's subject to that particular conservation easement, what it's restricted to. But in terms of Williamson Act, the lands are restricted to the production of food and fiber. So the land has to be for the production of food and fiber, and that's what it's restricted to.
Right, it encourages ag production.
Yeah, it restricts it to that use.
Right.
And the Williamson Act was encouraged by the state of California, was subsidizing the counties for those Williamson Act.
When the Subvention Act was in place and the state was paying for the lost property tax revenue, the county was recouping the costs until 2009 when the state removed it from the budget. So until 2009, the state made up the difference.
And now it comes out of the general fund.
Correct.
You know, I am sympathetic to the ranchers and the taxes that we all pay, actually. My concern is, number one, in 2012, the board enacted that policy because of the loss of income, you know, to the county. And in some cases, the ranchers are getting the tax break, but they're also getting another benefit, if you will, by selling their property or the rights to their property, the conservation easements. And so it's kind of like, which benefit do you want? I can see why the county enacted this policy, because we're a poor county. We still have to pay for the roads, we still have to pay for employees and all the services that the various properties require. And I kind of see this as, you know, kind of pick or choose your benefit, but in continuing the Williamson Act in general, that means that the other county taxpayers like myself and, you know, people that have private homes, we're subsidizing the roads and all the other services. It's almost like a gift of public funds. And which I understand the reason for it, why the Williamson Act was enacted. But if they're gonna make money on a conservancy where they, you know, in the case of the Kramers looking at the public records, they sold the rights to that, you know, that conservancy for a considerable amount of money, well beyond their tax savings. And I think to balance things out, I mean, we have to look at the benefit to the whole county, not just to, you know, a particular group. As sympathetic as we might be, we've got the whole county to consider. And you know, I'm falling more on the side of, you know, we can't afford to give up the income.
Supervisor Bridges?
First off, when the Williamson Act was set up, I'm a fan of what it was. It is 100% good for the ranchers, the community, the people that worked at the prison. It was good for everybody. If we want to blame somebody for this, we need to talk to the state. The state is the one who changed the rules that's going to hurt some more people in Lassen County. I'm not a fan of that by no means. That really upsets me. And the state does it again and again and again to these little rural counties. And, you know, we have to live with it. We have to make tough decisions. And some of them, I despise making them. But we're setting up here, doing what's best for an entire county. And sometimes that's a lot harder than people think. So, thank you.
So, for discussion purposes, you do need a motion on the table.
All right. Can I have a motion?
So just before you make a motion,
Yes.
So the policy would have to be changed in order to allow for the easement, so just wanna make that clear. So if the desire is to allow for it, it would have to come back with a policy change.
So I need a motion
Or for
for,
the renewal, excuse me.
I'd like to make a motion, to determine that the recorded non-renewal notice is appropriate.
I have to second it.
okay, second. With Supervisor Bridges. Okay. Do we have some?
Now you can discuss it.
All right, and I feel that I need to talk to Mr. Kramer. It- I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding what was in here, that in 2013, you guys took conservancy easement,
Yes, my,
Is that
my
right?
parents, my parents did, yes.
okay? And then, and did you guys know that the county had this policy of eliminating the Williamson Act by you taking the conservancy in 2013?
I didn't know it until we got the non-renewal on the taxes this year. Now, looking back through the taxes, I'm like, what's going on? Why is this non-renewed? We had another conservation easement. Looking back through the taxes this year, I found it, that it was non-renewed, the 2013 property. And just for reference, it's 300 acres, and the taxes on that at before the easement was like $600. It is now $7,000. So for you to think that it is just a few dollars, I'm scared to death what this is gonna do to the whole ranch. I don't know if I can keep it together. Honest to goodness, if my taxes go up to $100,000, where's that money coming from? I mean, you're saying that it won't go up, but the 300 acre piece of ground in the Williamson Act goes up to $7,000, or that has been removed from the Williamson Act, went up to $7,000. I'm scared to death, and even your assessors can't even say, it's just an estimate. We don't know what they're gonna do. So, to be safe for the agriculture properties, I mean, you're treating everybody else, every other farmer the same way. They get to stay in the Williamson Act. It's discrimination to pull me out. What did I do? I mean, all I did was make sure that this ranch can move on to my kids and grandkids, move on to the next generation. All we did was make ourselves financially sound when we had the opportunity. And now we're being penalized and punished for it. And if the taxes do go sky high, I don't know what I'm gonna do. There's not an extra $100,000 in my business to pay it. You know, right now, I pay like 60 grand in taxes right now. And if it goes up more, it's gonna be a hardship. And that's what I'm saying to you, is treat me like you're treating every other farmer and rancher. If I was selling my ground, stepping completely out of agriculture and washing my hands of it, yeah, tax me. But that's not it. I'm generating an income off of this. This is it. This is my family's income. I have 3 family members who pull incomes out of the ranch, plus 3 employees. Not to mention 50, 60 vendors that I use in the Lassen County area. So as you're wanting your little bit of tax money, I mean, you can tax us out of business, and then what does that do to your county? I mean, you're getting income tax from me when I make money, and you're getting taxes when I buy things in the community, and I don't know. I just think you ought to support your local businesses and take better care of us. So, is there any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Close.
I have a couple questions here, man.
Yes.
Galen, can I ask you a couple questions, please? Is there already a provision in the Williamson Act that recognizes the consistency of its contract with the conservation easement?
I'm not familiar with that, no. Nothing I'm familiar with.
Public Resource Code, section
I'm
10,000.
just not, I don't have knowledge about that, so I can't speak to it.
Oh. Well, according to this, well, I've seen it on multiple letters. Is there any way we could look that up? Public Resource Code, section 10,211 provides that the valuation under the Williamson Act can be utilized when a conservation easement is granted pursuant to the California Farmland.
That might be a question for your assessor.
Is Nick still here?
I'm here, I do not have an answer.
I would say that there is not necessarily an inconsistency with easements and the Williamson Act. I don't know that that's the question that the board is having before it, but generally speaking, I don't think they're inconsistent with each other. Some open space easements require that you not be in the Williamson Act, some do, some don't. That's all dependent on the individual contract, but I don't think for the record that there's necessarily an inconsistency per se.
So, are you referring to this property being open space zone?
I'm talking in generalities. The idea that the Williamson Act and open space easements are inconsistent with each other is not something that I would state. It's not, to my knowledge, that's not true. They can be consistent with each other. But again, I don't know that that's the discussion that the board's having.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to kick everything around. Like, for instance, the Williamson Act requires ag production. So if they're removed from the Williamson Act, they're not required to keep producing ag production. They're just required to conservancy on the property. Do I understand that correctly about the Williamson Act?
Depends on the details of the conservancy.
Yeah, the open space contracts may require different things. That's all in the details of the contract and specific to that. If you're in the Williamson Act, you're restricted to the production of food and fiber.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion up here? Okay. We, a motion, and so I'm calling for a vote. All those,
Roll call,
Roll
please.
roll call.
Can I understand for just a second? If we say yes, we're agreeing with the non-renewal?
Correct.
Okay.
Supervisor Scanlon,
Yes.
Supervisor Bridges,
Yes.
Supervisor Ingram,
No.
Supervisor Neely.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move to D2.
Do you want me to go get Aaron?
Yeah. And
The action on the letter will be next week, but currently unless you all vote.
I love your book. Very fancy.
all right, we're moving on to D2. The Ralph and Brown Act violation.
So, Mr. Chair, you recall from a few meetings back, there was an allegation of a Brown Act violation in connection with a discussion about the live streaming video conference. That led to an investigation conducted by the district attorney, who ultimately found that there had been a serial meeting in violation of the Brown Act. So there has been a letter, prepared, to cure it, but we cannot, that's not agendized here today to approve that letter, so that will be next meeting. But this is to, receive and discuss the district attorney's letter and to, rescind or ratify the board's action of February 11th, 2025. My recommendation with the action, as is best practice, is to rescind the action, and if the board so desires to renotice it as an agenda item and have it reheard so the public can fully engage. That's what you have, that's what is here before you, is to discuss the district attorney's letter and to talk about the action.
Okay, so. You have
I don't know if it's too early to offer a motion, but,
I think I'm offering, you can make the motion and then allow for public comment.
okay. I'd like to make a motion to rescind, the motion of February 11th regarding, live stream.
I will second that.
Okay. Motion's been made by Supervisor Scanlon, second by Supervisor Bridges. So, do we have any public comment on it?
So, I
Can you
wanna
state
put.
your name for the
Sure,
record?
Amy Hawley, Susanville, California. I wanna say that I applaud the effort to get live stream up and running. I understand, from an article that Mr. Sam Williams had posted with regards to the, district attorney's office being understaffed. This is not a nefarious position that you all are, taking on. I don't know, in the absence of complete knowledge, I don't believe that any money has changed hands. I don't believe that a $1,000 fine, if that would be the cause, would be appropriate here. I don't believe that a district attorney whose office is understaffed and has very little time to come in here and cast aspersions and be in judge, jury, and trial of this. It really upsets me because this is not a nefarious act. This is not a nefarious position. If there was some kind of conversation and somebody blabbed, shame on them, they should get a fine. This should not be stalled because somebody got their britches in a wad. And I don't know what the deal is on this. I don't know what the time frame will be on this, but shame on whoever thought this would be a dandy idea to stop at this juncture when we have the momentum in progress. Our public deserves and pays taxes to be notified. Meanwhile, we have a citizen over here using her own data, her own time. She has a business to run. And our district attorney is sitting here casting aspersions. We don't even know the full details, nor do I really care to know who said what, who said whatever. But I think it's a darn shame that somebody has to come up here and stop this vital project. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify just the process that might help the public understand a little bit more. Thank you. The Brown Act is designed to ensure that the public is informed of and has an ability to participate in certain actions. There are violations that can occur with regard to the Brown Act, and the one that is that was reported here in open session is what's called a serial meeting, and that's when more than 2 board members discuss an item that comes before them outside of the public arena. So when that comes to light, the district attorney certainly is the only person that can investigate these for purposes of a violation. It was reported to her and she did her job by investigating this. The cure of that is to have the board commit in public session, which will happen at the next public session, in writing to not violate the Brown Act in the future. In order to allow for the public full participation outside of a Brown Act violation, like I said at the outset, the best practice is to bring that matter back forward before the board and have them discuss it in open and have the public have it noticed for purposes as a separate item for the public to participate. So it's like I said, the district attorney is the one who investigates these allegations, and it was brought to her attention, and she did her job in that regard. So I just want to make it clear that the purpose of the Brown Act is to allow for open public discussion and to ensure that the board isn't having discussions intentionally or unintentionally with more than 2 board members, 2 at a time, not 3 at a time, outside of the public arena. So I hope that maybe sheds a little bit of light on what this process is.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to just comment on that? Okay.
No, this is a good move, and I'm in full support of this motion. It's a good move, this is what we have to do, this is what we need to do. And like we said, we can re-agendize this again and bring it back, but we have to cure, the letter that was given to us. And so this is the way to do it, and get everybody back up on the straight and narrow, and this is full transparency, and this is what everybody's been wanting, so this is what we're doing.
Anybody else? Okay, so, roll call vote.
Supervisor Scanlon,
Yes.
Supervisor Bridges,
Yes.
Supervisor Alba,
Aye.
Supervisor Ingram,
No.
Supervisor Neely.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we're going to go back to,
We have a, yeah, there's a D3.
oh, sorry.
It's on the next page.
Okay, D3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board. So we had a contract with Kimley Horn to update our area plans, the Johnsonville, Susanville vicinity, and Richmond Gold Run area plan, and to add some other areas into that area plan. The board's asked for a report on the status of that. We had a series of community meetings. The purpose is to report on the status. We have our consultant, Steve Peterson, here, who can look up, maybe if Travis has a connection over there. Steve Peterson is here to give an update.
What's that?
And I'll turn it over to Steve. So it just take just a second to get the PowerPoint up and going.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. I just need to try and get this one on. Good job. Excellent. There you go. There you go. Thanks, Travis.
Good morning, Chair Neely and members of the board. My name is Steve Peterson. I'm with Kimley Horn Associates, and I'm glad to be in front of you today. Really excited about where we are with the process of updating the regional area plans around the vicinity. And what I'd like to do is walk through a status report of where we are today. I'll also discuss where specifically we are with preparation of the plan. And also, in response to coordination with your staff, we understand that there's a great concern about the funding for this project at the present time. So with that, we've been working internally to look to both optimize going forward and efficiently provide some suggestions for you all to consider and what we might want to do with the plan at this juncture. So if I may, I'll go ahead and start. So these are the key elements. I'd like to give you that overview, speak to the public engagement process, which I know a number of you participated in, and also status of the plan, and then going forward. Just as a little bit of benchmarking, this is where the plan exists around the city of Susanville in different neighborhoods. And in essence, this has been the the challenge of this project, and one of the reasons that the project came forward is that you've got 4 basic plans that were constructed a long time ago that overlap, interact in inefficient ways, and don't really respond to your current general plan. So with that, that's one of the driving forces, as you know. Getting the plan, the regional plan, unified and also compliant with the general plan is not only a good idea, it's the law. It's a matter of, the legislature very clearly said that they want to make sure that all plans that feed into a general plan are consistent with the general plan. So that was one of the key elements of going forward. So again, the Project United plans that are 30, in some cases 40 years old, and we put them together. We looked at how they interacted, things that overlapped, things that conflicted with each other, things that needed to be streamlined, and then with the overarching understanding that all of these pieces need to be assembled into one matrix or one piece and one map so that it could be considered as we're going forward. So with that, we made a comparison, and with that combination of plans, there were 23 discrete plan elements that we looked at. And I'll get into a slide that shows you exactly how we did that. And then after we looked at all those different things, we did the public outreach, and then we put our heads together and started to formulate some recommendations. So this, in essence, is what we're doing. Basically, you had the black and white plans that were done at different times and different scales and different focus areas and different categories. And we basically put those all together into one composite plan. And that's the paint splatter, if you will, of the plan on the right. And so there's no real rhyme or reason to the way these areas interact. And that's one of the key goals of getting the unified plan together, is to make sure there's cohesion and there's logic, and also from both an economic development and also just a community preservation and enhancement standpoint, that all these things fit together. So this is an example element that I pulled out to show you the kind of work that we're doing. So you've got an existing plan that spoke to annexation, for example. And the reason I chose this is there was a lot of discussion and some misunderstanding as to what the county was trying to do here, or is. Annexation is something that is not necessarily currently seen with any sort of interest from the public meetings that we've had, and we're not aware of that. But some of the plans did contain annexation language. So in this case, for this particular element, we made these recommendations. So we've carefully gone through each element of the existing plans and made recommendations about how they should be dealt with. In this case, we suggest abandoning this element altogether. And that's going to be our recommendation. But in other elements, we have other things that sort of change the wording, change the intent a little bit to be compliant with current law and also your current general plan. Another thing we did is try to streamline the categories. The categories of land use were all over the place, and each one of the plans had different categorizations, again, not consistent with your general plan. So here's an example of what we did with these particular plan elements. So for example, streets and highways and circulation, those sorts of things get bounded together, and then you have a variety of headings that you can compress into more logical and feasible plans that are compliant with your general plan. And again, the land use designations in some cases needed to be updated. Your general plan doesn't recognize general forest or just an area called intensive, so that's where we clean these things up. So a big part of what we've done so far is the public engagement project or process that was conducted largely at the last week of January. And I know a number of you folks attended, gentlemen who attended, and with that, these are the goals for the workshop process. We wanted to introduce the ideas of the plan to the community, to speak to what the existing plans are currently, talk about the safety element, and that was also a topic that we tried to bring up at every meeting, answer questions, and then solicit ideas and look for what the community really wanted to do. As part of that engagement process, we ended up mailing out about 5,000 notifications, and I'd like to take a moment to say that there's one thing that we didn't do, and I'm sorry we didn't do, but if we do go forward with the plan, It's something we will do the next time, and that is something that we called out in the contract, which was to get radio ads for the workshops. So that's something that I take responsibility for, and we'll make sure that if we are going to continue, we'll get that done for the next phase of the project. Within the process, we also had a study that was handed out to the folks that attended the workshops and also posted on the county's website. And we got a very good response to that, over 220 completed surveys, and of that, roughly about half of them, or more than half of them, were received online. So here are the key results. There's a compendium of different meetings, of the 3 meetings, and also the results of those meetings, but here are some of the key points that we heard. In general, the community's not looking for big change. They're generally happy with what is currently the land uses within the communities and those sorts of things, and that the zoning and land use designations are generally accepted. And with that, there was a lot of talk about growth, what it means, what it could mean to the communities. There was some very great concern about what this particular set of plans might do when they're united to affect agriculture, specifically ranching, would there be an impact there? And also in Johnsonville in particular, working to get some safe routes to school established. With these, there's a variety of other topics, but also a lot of concern. That's something that we got loud and clear, is that people were very concerned that their way of life might be changing, and that really could impact the way that they live their lives. One of the big reasons that we're here with this plan is in response to what's gone on in the department from roughly 2016 to 2023. There were several cases where the base zoning for an area didn't really respond to what folks wanted to do with their property. Specifically, in areas zoned as industrial, folks wanted to have a variety of commercial uses. So with that, that included the Johnsonville Road area, where a medical heliport, a cannabis dispensary, a CRV redemption center, a brewery and a restaurant, and a firearms sale business all came forward. And with that, the zoning ordinances allowed for the consideration of commercial uses in industrial zones. But with that, there was a general recognition that aside from not being compliant with the general plan, these plans didn't allow that kind of flexibility. So that's one of the things that we're working towards as we're crafting the draft plan. Here's the current status of the plan in production. So as you can see from the table of contents, this is one page of it. We've completed a lot of the work of the document. And currently, as I stand before you today, we're on schedule and within budget and moving forward. And so the majority of these things are nearing completion, if not complete. Here's the rest of the table of contents. You'll see at the bottom that cultural resources is at 0 completion, and that's by design because we didn't really know what was going to happen with boundaries or what the ultimate envelope would look like. So there are 2 things that need to be done to move the plan forward to completion. It needs both that cultural resources analysis and ultimately in going through CEQA, the AB 52 consultation with tribes, and then also the circulation plan. And the circulation plan is really kind of the heavy technical lift going forward. It's within the contract. It's now's the time in the planning process where we would be kicking it off in theory. So this is exactly what the circulation plan consists of. Looking at these different elements, the existing system, circulation goals and policies, which is important for looking at areas that might need improvements, including the safe routes to school process and going through that for funding. Also looking at the ultimate build-up, what it might look like from the standpoint of what the county's goals might be for improvements around the area in general, and what in turn could be broken into pieces that could potentially be brought forward for grant funding and that sort of thing. So to be competitive for those sorts of things, this sort of program is needed to define what those proposed improvements might be, also what segments might be broken into bite-sized pieces for grants and funding from others, and how to become competitive for those dollars. The circulation plan report would tie all those things together and serve as sort of a shopping list, if you will, for bringing those things forward. And also, as I'm sure you've dealt with before, the VMT analysis is now required, and that's something we'll do as part of our process for vehicle miles traveled. And that's related to the relationship between residences and workplaces, and rather than the old letter grade evaluation of intersections, the A through F level of service, this now looks at the actual number of miles that would be generated by folks going to work and that sort of thing.
Does that, can I ask a question?
Oh, of course.
On the vehicle mount, does that include both electric and fossil fuel vehicles?
There's not a distinction that I know of yet,
Okay.
but that would seem to have logic, you know, but as we know, state law seldom has logic. So with that, that's something, Board Member Alba, I will definitely check into and report back to you.
Good question.
But that's something that, you know, again, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research has now been broken up into another organization, but they still oversee the VMT regulations. Another thing that's been coming to fore is the idea that a lot of the original intent of that legislation and those policies had to do with that relationship between work and home and those distances, trying to reduce commuting, but it does a very poor job of looking at what industry does and what industry needs, more importantly. So it's a work in progress, and I'll check in on the electric vehicle question and get an answer back to you. So with that, given the challenges that the county is facing from an economic standpoint as related to us by your staff, we believe there are two options that you might consider. The first is stopping work immediately. So with that, your board item, I think, identified an expenditure to date of $150,000. With the invoices for February and March, it would total a total of $215,000. So if we stop today, that's, in round numbers, that's the bill that would come due. So what that would mean is we would basically drop pencils. We wouldn't go forward with any of the other analysis. We wouldn't complete those increments that I mentioned before, and it would be stop work until further notice. Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. Just, what if we stop the project and then at a later date decided to come back? Would you have to start all over, or would you start from where you left off?
That's a great question. That is a really good question, and after one more slide, I'm going to answer it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, fair enough.
I got ahead of you.
Well, it's not that hard to do.
I don't know.
I don't know, Supervisor Briggs. But anyway, so that's dropping pencils right now.
Thank you.
Of course. So with that, we looked at where we are in the planning process, what needs to be done to basically put a bow on it, to complete the plan proper and postpone or defer the CEQA process. And this is, I think, what your question was about, Supervisor Briggs. So with that, again, the circulation analysis, $64,000. The cultural analysis, coordination with the tribes, all that business, $27,000. And then for the actual update, for the completion of the update, roughly $60,000 would be needed. And then just guessing, we would expect that the project meeting and direct costs would be approximately $30,000, depending on how much back and forth and review with staff and that sort of thing. And so that would that would equal, including the money spent to date, the $215,000, another expenditure of roughly $180,000 to complete the plan. Getting back to your question, Supervisor Briggs, that's the situation that we don't know. We don't know if you know when the project may be restarted. But the thing that I can tell you, in being through situations like this in the bad old days of 2008, 2009, 2010, that it's important, at least from a practice standpoint, to complete a task, complete a plan, even if it hasn't gone through the formalization, review, acceptance process. I think there's great value in completing a plan, just because if you are gonna revisit it and a duration of time happens where it's going to be a year or something like that, it's very likely that you would need to go back out to the public, you'd need it to sort of re-engage and restart, and there's a cost to that. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I think it would be significant. So with that, that's kind of where we're at. And so if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
Yes, Supervisor Alba. Do you guys do, I don't know what you want to call it, donation work? You guys do donations for us?
Yeah, well, we, part of our business strategy, Supervisor Alba, that we lose a little money on every job, but we make it up in volume, so.
Fair enough.
You're probably way ahead on volume, so I'm kind of looking at that right now.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I'd be curious to hear what acting CAO Maury's thoughts are on this.
Well, first off, I'll say I really appreciate the effort that Kinley Warren's done so far. I believe that the project in general is a good project. I think it represents the board's willingness to see that we maybe need some more commercial zoning in the Johnsonville area, et cetera. That said, sitting in this seat, I've been speaking to staff, and I'm concerned about the budget. That's why I have this agendized the way it is, and I'm recommending that you either pause entirely, or the other option is to try to button it up with those other elements. But I think at this point, I'd like to get through this fiscal year and see what the forecast looks like. But it's certainly not any reflection on Kinley Warren or this process.
I attended the meetings, and I think it's a worthwhile project, and I appreciate the progress that's been made. You guys have put a lot of work into it. It's just a matter of timing and money, and I think it's prudent for us to reconsider at this point, saving some money for budgetary needs that are extreme. I mean, I'd like to keep it going, but I think we're better off saving the money right now.
I went to two of your meetings because I was out of town on one of them. I appreciate everything you've done. It's impressive. You know, every day I hear, you know, we need economic growth. We need to expand Susanville. You know, it's not moving on. This was one of the answers. But right now, the state has us in a bind on funding, and we've got to make it through the year. That's my concerns. Do I think it needs finished? Absolutely, I agree with it 100%, because I feel I can justify the money for the outcome. But at this time, I'm very leery. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. You know, I got a question for you, and for you and Lord both. You have the same answer, but you got different answers. You have in there, you can finish this without doing CEQA for substantially less. What is the consequence of not completing the CEQA, or it'll still be a valid plan though, wouldn't it, or would it not? It wouldn't be valid.
Yeah, CEQA is a component that has to happen, and it would simply be putting the plan together and awaiting funding for CEQA, essentially.
That's right.
Which is a lion's share of the total amount.
Okay, so my next question is for you, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir.
Is our last area plans have lasted us for 30 to 40 years? If you're doing good enough work here, that's gonna continue for another 30 to 40 years with this update?
I believe that a couple of things will come out of the unification of these plans. One will be that they will be fit hand in glove with the general plan, which is critical and required. But I think the other thing that could happen is predictability. And with that, a lot of the questions that your staff, Mr. Norwood, Mr. May, and also Mr. Anderson, they've talked about in kicking the project off and getting it going, that there is great uncertainty if you're trying to do business in the area around the city of Susanville, and that what applies. The area plans say one thing, the general plan says another. To my mind, having the streamlined area plan as a single plan and having that compliant with the general plan, that really helps with those things. The other thing that happens with the project, and the reason it would have a long life, is that by being in lockstep with the general plan, when you eventually do the general plan update, whenever that might be, then updating the area plans would be very simple. And so with that, no plan is static, ideally, and no plan will live forever, ideally. But I think that having a plan completed and eventually running it through CEQA, getting the CEQA document certified and adopting that plan formally would give a long life, and it would definitely support the community as it develops. I don't know how long life will go on with the adopted plan, but I can assure you that the window of 20 years is pretty believable.
My next question is, if we go ahead and go through with this to get this finished without CEQA, will the information stand if you don't go through CEQA until 3-4 years down the road and we have better budgetary?
You want to go first, or would you like me? I'd be glad to.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll see if I.
In general, CEQA practice, especially for a plan, that's something that has a longer life than, say, a building or something like that when you're studying that. So the big changes that happen within a local or a small area can be significant, whereas in a general sense, plan areas don't really change that much over time. So I think the shelf life before going into CEQA is probably pretty good, but I would be curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree, just with the caveat, the case law directs things very significantly so. You know, barring some kind of case law that changes the whole landscape, I agree that it would be a plan that you could run it up the CEQA flagpole just like you would any other plan, and we would of course look at it to make sure that nothing's changed that affects that. But I think that, yeah, I think it would be solid for a number of years.
Well, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, we have a huge investment already in this, and I think we have to go back and reinvent the wheel. If we can get this buttoned up, at least without CEQA, and then we can move forward a couple of years from now if we have to. That's kind of where I'm looking.
And the CEQA is in the plan, we need CEQA in there for what?
Well, to be able to adopt the plan formally, you need to consider the environmental impacts under CEQA. So with that, the idea is that we would be pulling together the draft plan and then be putting it on the shelf, as it were. When you folks wanted to, when the county wanted to re-engage and look towards the CEQA process, as Mr. Anderson just said, you would do sort of a staff level review and if needed, refresh a couple of things if it's been a very long time. But within the next couple of years, I'd be surprised if there is anything. But with that, you would go forward into the EIR process. And then once that EIR was issued, the draft comes out, as you know the drill, comments would come back, the final EIR would be prepared, and then the action that your board would be taking would be, first of all, the certification of that environmental impact report document as a first step. And with the certification of the document, then you would be able to adopt the plan that's relying on that environmental baseline. So it's sort of a two-step process once it comes back to you.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, sir.
I don't know if it's out of order, but would you mind reviewing the numbers for a moment? We know that if we cancel the contract now, we can put the plan on
Sure,
hold.
be glad to.
We save about $650.
There they are,
Right.
And
So,
then if we continue the
That's to
plan,
date, that's total.
okay, so we're gonna spend another $180 grand basically.
roughly, yeah.
Accurate?
Yeah, about 185-ish.
Okay.
And that's without CEQA, and we budgeted 400,000 for the year on this, so it would eat the whole 400.
Yes, and then the, moving into the CEQA, obviously that would be paused, and I believe the total contract value was $845,000, something like that. So basically, you'd be deferring the expenditure of $400,000, roughly.
I'd like to just make a recommendation to you. That is to suspend the plan as it is right now. I think that it would make sense in the future to do the circulation when we resume this. We've got potential projects happening out, from gas stations to other things, and so that might impact the circulation. I don't know, but I think that makes sense to not do that at this juncture anyway. The cultural resource part isn't going anywhere, so I don't think there's any urgency with regard to that. And again, I just feel based on the current forecast for the budget being a very challenging year that it would make sense to pause now.
Would that be a motion to pause or suspend, or what would that?
It would, the actual wording, I believe, is terminate the contract.
Terminate.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Say we suspend this, we come back, we won't, part of this that we're gonna lose is invested, and we won't lose the total amount, correct?
Depends on how quickly we come back.
Well, that's true too.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Okay.
your question.
We have spent $215,000 to date.
Yes.
We suspend this and come back, say in 2 years. Will we start back at zero, or will part of our investment count?
I think the majority of the work that all the work that we've done will have utility from the standpoint of actually doing that composite work within all the plans, all 23 elements, and so with that, the recommendations for taking a plan forward will be valid, and that won't change. So yes, that'll have utility in the future.
Thank you, that's a good answer.
And are we going to get everything that you've completed?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah, the work products belong to you.
I need,
With that, I'll make a motion to suspend the plan, or terminate.
Second.
Okay.
Well, the language, it would be to terminate the contract,
Okay,
Yes.
I make a motion to terminate the contract.
Second.
and then you open it up for public comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody that would like to speak on this?
Well, I did, but now my wind's out of my sails here.
We gotta hear from you.
Okay, Angie Boss, Alaskan County Republican Assembly. I was going to talk about the regional area planning of the $873,245. And it seems like now it's been suspended, which I was going to recommend because I wasn't too keen on the community engagement, and I think that failed greatly. And I did bring up that there wasn't any radio advertisement, which was in the contract, so that was a breach of contract. And also, in the community meetings, you mentioned that it was in the plans to have a baseline for discussion, and that was the current community plans, the county's current general plan, as well as the county general plan safety element. And we were at all the meetings, and I don't recall hearing any of those. So when it was discussed, and I can just say that we left. That we left with nothing answered. So maybe in the future, community engagement could be a little better. Nothing was answered, and I'm just hoping that Kimberly Horn would think about that. And because everybody was going, we don't get this, and that's a lot of money, and especially with the community engagement of being $91,000 plus. The meetings itself were $44,000, which I thought was excessive, and even just the products that they brought to those meetings at $17,000. I thought was a lot, and I think we can get poster board for a little more cheaper than that. So anyway, I'm glad to hear that you guys are putting it off, because there's that part that you could do that. So thank you, thanks very much, and that's all I have to say, because I can't see anymore. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to talk?
Sure. My name is Steve Beachek, and I think it's a great direction to go for the county. I hate to see the loss of income, or the expense that we put in there, but I do believe that a lot of that information can be forwarded for the future years. with that being said, we've got different areas that we talked about as far as commercial and industrial and things like that. I'd like the county to really look at that to make sure that any potential growth that we do have, or somebody wanting to do some sort of businesses, is really looked at on maybe a one-on-one basis and see what we can do to really contour our zoning or planning or whatever it is, which I don't have the knowledge of that, but really to look at strongly as that. This plan here, what I never could understand was the actually outcome that Lassen County was gonna get from it. So hopefully going forward with that, I would love to hear that being one of the selling points of updating an area plan or a plan of for Lassen County as to the real outcome that is gonna be a benefit to not only the county as a government, but the county for the citizens as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. Oh, all right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back up here. Supervisor Alba.
Mr. Peterson, I just hope you don't take this personal.
Okay.
It's financial, I mean, because you've done a lot of work in Lassen County over the years that I've been up here on the board. You've been helping us with many projects, and you've always had a good job, and I think you're going the right way on this one, but it's no fault of yours that we're having to do this, and I hope you're not taking it personal.
Certainly, it's disappointing, Supervisor Alba, but I've got to tell you, again, I suffered through the 2008, 2009, 2010 era, and a lot of good work that jurisdictions wanted to get accomplished just had to be put on hold, put on ice. And we don't take it personally. We appreciate the opportunity to work for the county and to work for you all. And I do take your criticisms to heart, and I appreciate that. And we'll do better next time if we get the opportunity. So thank you so much.
I want to thank you too. I got to know you a little bit during this, and I appreciate your positive attitude. And I really felt you were trying to do what was best for our community. And for that, I thank you for that and your friendship.
Thank you, Supervisor. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Okay. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Scanlon,
Yes.
Supervisor Bridges,
Yes.
Supervisor Alba,
No.
Supervisor Ingram,
Aye.
Supervisor Neely.
Yes. Okay, so you want to do that? And that's the last.
Just tear it down.
I'm not trying to be critical,
Well,
Too bad,
okay, I'm going to come back to, unagendized reports by board members. So, who wants to start? Supervisor Ingram, you want to start?
Sure. I think it was about a week ago now, I attended a NorCal EMS Zoom. Yesterday, we had LTSA and LCTC meetings. Over the last couple of weeks, I spoke with our behavioral health director about the fentanyl presentations I received down in Imperial County. Forwarded them to her, and she looks like these presentations would be a very good template for Lassen County as well. In April, probably towards the end of May, we'll be holding MHSA stakeholder meetings and fentanyl town halls all over the county to raise fentanyl awareness and the dangers of that as well. We have a 395 coalition meeting at the Washoe County Administrative Office tomorrow, EMS Zooms as well, and I'm happy to report the RFP has finally been approved by the state, and it's flying right now for our ambulance services for the entire county for the duration of 2025 through 2029. I can't thank the consultants in NorCal EMS and Silas Rojas, our OAS chief, for all his hard work to get that RFP in place.
Supervisor Alba. Yeah, a couple of things. The first one is we had our BVAC meeting up there in Big Valley, Galen, kind of give us a little bit of a preview. The area plan PhD was finally approved by the state. You know, it was amazing how it was sold it to be our plan, but yet they come back with 61 pages of recommendations and suggestions of how we should write our plan.
They're just trying to help.
They're trying to help, yeah. But not in a good way. So anyway, we did get that through, so that was, I guess it's a good thing, I don't know, I'm still not sold that it's a good thing, but there we are. Let's see, also, the school down at Big Valley School, they did a Read Across America with the parents and community members and different areas. They come in and read to the kids, and Mr. McGarvey showed up to go up there and read to the kids, and he did an outstanding job. The kids really loved him. It was pretty cool. He went into preschool, and he has one little kid sitting on one knee, and another little kid climbed up and sat on the other knee, and he's trying to hold them both and read the book. And anyway, it was good stuff. So thank you, Mr. McGarvey, for going up there. You were a big fan, so thank you for that.
Glad to do it.
Attended transportation meeting yesterday, and not too much to report out of that, but I was there for that. You know, and the other thing I want to bring up is that, you know, last week we were talking about the budget, where we could get some more funding from. And in light of transparency, honesty, and integrity, you know, Mr. Ingram said he didn't think he was allowed to look at the budget because he wasn't a member of the budget committee. You know, and okay, you shut me down. But that's not true. I'll leave it there.
I'm pleased to report I have a lot of budget questions, and I've already met with our treasurer, tax collector, and I have an appointment with Sam.
Thanks. And
Can't wait to go over
Mike?
that.
Sure. On February 25th, I attended the Alaska Regional Solid Waste Management Authority meeting and discussion regarding monitoring wells at the various locations, some possible penalties pending against the county regarding gas emissions, and the need to replace a compactor for the dump. On March 3rd, I attended the Westwood Community Service District meeting. We had discussion regarding possible rate increases. We reviewed the financial reports and then talked about a possible donation of land to the CSD up there. They're gonna get like 148 acres given to them, looks like. March 4th, I met with possible candidates to the fair board to get to know them, and a discussion regarding various aspects of the fair and trying to, problem solve, shooting ideas back and forth and stuff. It was a good conversation. And then on March 6th, I attended the Clear Creek Community Service District meeting. It wasn't actually an official meeting because they don't have an actual quorum. We're supposed to vote on that next meeting or two regarding that. But I want to say that the atmosphere within that community service district has improved greatly. I saw a real cooperative effort by the people that were there. There was a presentation by Pace Engineering on a long-term water project that's been going on since 2017, and a grant that they've gotten from the state, and it's finally all kind of coming together. And so I think it's going to really improve the water service up there in Clear Creek. And then I also met with the candidates for the Clear Creek Community Service District that we'll be voting on next week or so. And like I said, I think those guys have really kind of pulled it together in a lot of good ways. So I'm
That's
looking forward to
good
working with them. Yeah.
One question on that, on the Clear Creek board, does that need to be the candidates or
Well,
what happened?
the letter that we got, that I got, I think we all got from Julie Bustamante was that we were gonna talk about it or vote on it today. There would be decisions made, and apparently in the agendizing process, it got pushed back to the last week of the month. And it needs to, I'd like to ask for that vote to be forwarded to the next meeting on the 18th, because they need to get a quorum so they can pay their bills and do all that kind of stuff.
Move forward.
Yeah.
All right. So they.
Is that's my official request.
So they still have a quorum?
They've got 2 members on the board right now, and we're gonna vote to appoint 2 additional members. That'll give them their quorum, and then they can conduct business.
give him a coin, but not very long ago. Did one of them-
There was resignation. We appointed some folks that resigned and left them with just 2 guys on the board.
So they're back square one again.
Well,
So
but like
you
I said,
guys-
some of that, I think some of that drama's behind them.
We'll,
Keep on
maybe we
trying.
can, agendize that on next meeting if you guys all agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
Supervisor.
On the 26th, I went down to Anderson and spent the night. The next day, I spent the day with Nortec Board of Directors. It's funding for the Workforce Alliance here in Lassen County. I have to compliment all of their outlying areas. The work they do is very strategic for each community and county. I'm very, very impressed. Let's see. On Saturday, I went up to Alturas and recertified for my CCW. And on the 10th, I had a behavioral health meeting last night. And I'd like to, and then I have to agree with Supervisor Ingram. There's a lot of work been done through the RSP for NorCal EMS. We can all be very happy with the outcome of that. I'd like to close today's meeting in memory of Robert Nelson. And the second person is Linda Norvell. And I'd like to make some contributions from my discretionary funds. $500 to SIR Powwow. $250 to Lassen County Historical Society. $250 to Lassen Sportsman's Club Fishing Derby. $250 to Lassen Family Services designated for the CASA program. And $250 to Lassen Grizzly Claybreakers. And I want to remind everybody on Thursday night, they're having a corned beef and cabbage for the Humane Society over at the Senior Center. So I'll see everybody there.
All right, so yesterday I attended the LTSA and the Lassen Transportation meetings also. And that's all I have to report out. So we will move on to F. 1. There's a vacancy on the Lassen County Assessment Appeal Board. And we have one applicant. And, is Ashley here?
She's not. Actually, Michelle Idaraga, Deputy Clerk of the Board. Do you want me to go to the podium? No. Okay.
Yes, well,
So Ashley Krejci, she's currently sits on the Assessment Appeals Board. I also am Deputy Clerk of the Assessment Appeals Board, another one of the boards that I clerk. She is currently an alternate. We had a resignation of one of the regular board members, Julie Brown. So there's actually a couple of vacancies on there. We don't get a lot of applicants for the Assessment Appeals Board. So Ashley went ahead and applied for it. So she'll go from an alternate member to a permanent member, and she's been on that board 4 or 5 years, yeah. And she has real estate experience. She worked for Chicago Title for years. She's in the BLM. She's working for the BLM right now in their real estate. So she's a good candidate. She's the only candidate, but she's a good candidate.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So the moral of the story is, if somebody's interested, they can apply, because you got more vacancies.
They can, but there's qualifications. They have to have real estate lending. They have to be familiar with real estate property. Because what they're doing is, if an appeal comes in regarding their tax assessment, they have to understand the discussion, how it got there. tax rates, whatnot.
All right, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Ashley Crazy to the Lassen committee.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Bridges made the motion, Supervisor Alba seconded. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back up here for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to, F2 for committee appointments. Huh?
Yeah, I'll tackle this.
Okay, thank you.
So, as the agenda says, this was Shaw McMullen. Mr. Shaw's recommendation is that it be Mrs. McMullen and Regina Schaff. And both victims are, both candidates are here in the audience. I might be countered.
No, I'm not sure it's necessary to appoint another regular at this time. Sam McMullen's able to, she said, appear by Zoom, just until you have either an interim appointed or a permanent CIO appointed, that could come back to you. So it's up to you. They're complicated. There's a lot that goes into those boards, and there's a lot to learn. So even if you had the alternate, I'm not sure, you probably attended primarily anyway, but it is up to the board if you wanted to go ahead and make the appointment. We'll just have to come back and probably do it again, because it's usually the CAO and Ms. McMullen.
Without an alternate, what happens if Ms. McMullen's not available?
They're able to attend by Zoom, so that would be unlikely, but yeah, you could appoint it, but you'd have to do it again. You just have to bring it back.
necessarily vote, but they can attend.
Exactly, the alternates can't vote anyway, so just.
I think we ought to hold off until we get a new CEO.
I think so too.
Good point, you as a good voter. Yeah, you could, but you could move Ms. McMullen into the regular position.
That's what I was gonna say, cause
Yeah.
with her being an alternate, she can't vote.
Correct.
We need a motion on that?
We need.
I make a motion to appoint Sam as a regular, and we'll bring it back when we have a permanent CAO.
Can we do that for, both of them, or you do one?
Yeah, they're the same, you want the same
I
people.
got a question on that. Regina is our, works with Trindell and everything, and so, I don't quite understand why she isn't involved in it. With her working all of our, insurance claims, risk claims, it just baffles me that we have the HR department not involved in this.
I don't have an answer for you, except that it is predominantly, CAOs that are on those boards.
Oh, I
Because
see.
they discuss policy stuff as well, it's not just going over cases, there are other concerns involved. And when you're talking about the insurers of the county as a whole, you're talking about financial situations that involve the county as a
I think it
whole, so
involves
that's
workload
usually why the
too,
CAOs are involved.
Sorry.
No, I'm learning,
I
thank you.
think it involves workload too for the staff.
That's what I was thinking, it's the
Okay.
workload.
Ms. Schaff does have a lot on her plate.
She's got the biggest
Not that
plate that I know.
Ms. McMullen
And
doesn't,
they
she
all-
just has it already going.
They all do, so yeah, I don't know, I was just asking questions, because I didn't.
Regina could be the alternate, we gotta come back anyway. Is that what you want?
No, that's fine the way you guys did it, but I just was wondering,
It's up to you.
Haven't done it yet.
so, okay,
It hasn't really been done.
I need a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint Sam McMullen as a regular and an alternate in Regina. For the Twindell insurance fund.
Okay,
Sterndale Land Prison?
Yeah,
Was that for both?
yeah,
that's
yeah, cause it's all one, right? On the-
basically,
It's all
The
number
same
2.
people serve on both, but they're different.
Okay. All right, is there anybody from the public? Okay, seeing none, bring it back up here for a vote. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, can we get through, G and then we will take a break?
Lunch?
Is that okay with everybody?
It's like Jason said, lunch break.
Yeah, lunch break,
A 15-minute break?
a feeding break.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to, G, the information and consent calendar. Is there anything that anybody would like to pull?
G8.
G8?
I think G9.
And G11? Okay,
You're not pulling my minutes.
is there anything else?
What, am I supposed to pull your minutes?
You better not.
I'll go back and read them.
And, I wanna pull G7. So if that's it, I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the balance of the calendar.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Supervisor Bridges made the motion, Supervisor Scanlon seconded it. Anybody from the public would like to comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we will go to G7.
Call for the vote?
Oh. No, I haven't voted.
There was a motion made
Oh,
for
yeah.
the balance.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's
I'm
okay.
getting ahead of myself.
You're just
Trying to
hungry.
get lunch, huh?
All those in favor of the balance of the G items? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to move to G7.
Hello, Tiffany Armstrong, Lawson County Behavioral Health Director.
Tiffany, I just had a question on, I appreciate the $0 amount that's in there, but I just, is there, do we have leftover monies that, for this agreement, this performance agreement?
Yeah, this
or-
isn't for funding, this is strictly just for performance, and they're just continuing it from the previous year.
Okay,
Yeah, so they're just asking for a second year on this particular one, but there's no funding attached to it whatsoever.
so whatever funding's there,
It's already existing.
It's already existing,
Correct.
but we just needed to.
They made some changes in regards to the performance. Just basically, they're saying we're gonna extend it for another year for performance, and then they'll reevaluate it at the second, after 2026. There's been a lot of changes happening with the state in terms of new propositions, new mandates that have been happening with behavioral health, and so they need to capture it into the contract itself. So these are just amendments that have happened within the last year. And so they're just trying to catch up. There's gonna be more mandates and more, obviously, changes happening, but they wanna make sure that we're adhering to those changes going forward from this point forward. But I definitely see in 2026, there'll be some massive changes going on with the entire contract itself. Coming from the state, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept, G8.
Seven.
Oh, 7, okay, I'm sorry. To approve the amendment, A02 to performance agreement and authorize the county CAO officer to designate once we execute the agreement.
Okay, second,
A second.
Okay. Motion made by Supervisor Bridges, seconded by Supervisor Scanlon. Anybody from the public want to comment? Okay, seeing none, bring it back up here for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
There's it.
Okay, G8, Mr. Alba.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, how are you today?
Good, how are you guys? Jason Viala, Community Social Services Director. Thank you for having me.
So this is to get $100,000 for future reporting.
So basically what it covers is, and it seems like a lot of words on there, but it covers the California Child and Family Review Services Review process. And in that process, it includes a self-improvement plan, which we have brought in the past to you guys, so you guys have an example of that. But it also does what's called the county self-assessment. And the county self-assessment is a large stakeholders group that is pretty hard to get going and is pretty hard to run, being somebody that is being critiqued. So it's a little easier to get have the state come in. This is not the state per se, but this is a contracted entity that the state said that we should contract with if we're interested in having them do these services. And then most of these services will actually, or this entire cost, I think up to like 85% will be reimbursable for us. So the remainder of that cost, once we get it reimbursed by time studies, will go to the budget funding item, which is a child welfare fund.
So why doesn't the state just come up and do this instead of going through all this rigmarole?
Well, the state actually relies heavily on the counties to do it, and it is quite a lift for the counties. This is the first year that we've actually entered this agreement to have somebody else do it. And the reason why we're doing it is because our timeliness on being able to get all of these pieces done in the time that the state wants us, the jumping through the hoops aspect, is not super easy for the states to do, or for the counties to do. So this will be our opportunity to have someone kind of come in, set up the stakeholder group, and then we can participate. And then from there, they'll help us set up the system improvement plan. And then, like I said, they'll also help facilitate the future reporting. So the reporting will be done on our end, but we imagine that we'll be able to leverage this contract to help us get the data, facilitate the meeting and everything else that would cost a lot of staff time to do.
So if I can,
Yeah,
Chief
please.
Probation Officer Jen Branding, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Clerk, thank you. This is a 5-year state process that we go through on a 5-year cycle. So we were here 5 years ago, and we typically contract back with the state for UC Davis. This year, we're gonna work with Social Change to be able to do it. And the reason why the state has the counties do this or to contract out with it is because you have a peer quality review board that comes, and that is counties that are very similar to yours in size and what your goals are with what you're working on and where your data, based upon all of the CWS CMS data that we report in through child welfare and probation on foster youth. They pull similar counties and they pull similar people so that they can come and look through what your process looks like, and they can offer suggestions on how to improve it based upon their knowledge. And out of that is where we get our county self-assessment that says, you know, here are the things that we're doing good and here's how we can improve on specific areas that we would like to improve on. And typically those areas are foster care placement moves, reducing those, increasing prevention services, permanency, you know, being able to utilize RFA homes prior to going to short-term therapeutic residential placements and items like that. Ensuring that youth have all of their independent living services, making sure that they have all of their placement information, their health and education information that's placed in there. And so typically, a majority, I don't know any county that puts it on themselves. They definitely do contract back with either an organization or UC Davis in the state to be able to do these, because it is a bigger lift and because there's specific data that gets pulled from all of these different websites that they help to interpret, because the data is backdated.
And a really good opportunity to add that this contract will also be covering probation side of this assessment, as well as we're going to basically try to use this contract to loop in the tribe from start to finish on this process. They're also a partner in child welfare. They're just a partner that's not often engaged early on. And so we agreed that our mission was to try to get them, all three of us, to kind of lead this process together. And so that was something that the chief really was a spearhead on, and I'm grateful for it because hopefully if everything lines up, this will be a much easier process than it's been in the past. But like the chief was saying, we really want to have plans that are going towards the bottom line. The last plan that we made focused on things like child and family team meetings, which is important for youth. But our next one, we're expecting to go at things like permanency, how long youth are in the system for. We're going to base it upon data, so that's me saying it without looking or seeing the self-assessment, but we imagine that we are going to go to that direction. So we, and I should add, Melissa back here is our analyst for child welfare. She's the one that also helps put the contract together, and with her, she's been checking the data markers that the state basically furnishes and the feds generally furnish or are going to furnish in a very easy infographic in the future. And we've been monitoring them for basically areas of improvement for the next year. So just wanted to add in our analyst team working on that piece.
So it's a whole bunch of money, just a checkbox.
It feels like it sometimes, but ideally our goal is to really narrow down where we should be focusing for our largest improvement and making the biggest impact to those in care. I think that would be good.
And that is, and one thing that I know for us at probation we're looking at is increasing and improving family finding efforts at the front end.
Yes.
So that when we need a placement, we have a list of family members, or we have a list of good family friends where we can place youth prior to placing them into a foster home. Because if you can imagine, being picked up right now and dropped in Tokyo, not knowing where you're at, what you're gonna eat, or anything else, that's a lot of what it's like for a foster youth. And so these plans really help us focus on the areas that are gonna improve the services that our foster youth in Lassen County receive, and that's both through child welfare and the probation department.
Melissa Reed, I'm the analyst for CFS. I can add a little dollar amount clarity. We previously contracted with UC Davis for this, and they are keeping their same price and cutting what they will provide us. So if we had contracted with UC Davis this year, it would have been $75,000, and we would have only gotten half of what Social Changes is willing to provide us. So it would have required a lot more work on staff, and between probation and CSS, there's only 2 of us that can do this with the help of directors who are spread thin already. So it would be a lot of work on staff.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Jason, I appreciate you guys including the tribe on this. I think it's they're pretty important that we need to stay engaged with them. And then the other thing is it's for developing the plan. It's going to be $25,000 just to develop the plan.
Yeah.
All the board.
I will say that those plans are rather
very hard.
extensive. And what we typically do is take like the 200-page plan that comes out with all of the data and the granular level of information that people don't want, and we kind of take all of that out and bring forth all of the pieces that are important in the work that we've done and the work that we need to do, because it is pretty extensive with what the state wants. And it's part of the federal Title IV auditing that comes through for that, for the money that the state gives to child welfare and probation through the Title IV grants.
And I should add too, we just got done developing the SIP plan, and it was, I don't know, like a 5-month process, and a lot of it is built, even longer, but when we finally got a concentrated effort around it, it was probably a 5-month process. And the hardest part is that they want us to be able to extract things from the data that they see on a state level. But what we find is hard is generally we are often pushing back on what it looks like on this level, or how to attack those different data markers that they see. So I will say it's nice to basically have almost like a mediator between us and the state to basically say, hey, we see the rule perspective, you guys can't require that, that's way too hard on them. And, so we do find that nice. I would say that often it's us trying to do that with the state, and so to have someone backing us up would be helpful.
The negotiation between our county agencies and our staff time in between that and the state are going to greatly exceed the cost of the contract.
Correct.
Because we've been doing this for the past 5 years, and we are starting our new peer review process this year as well.
Yeah,
So.
September.
Mhm.
So it boils down to the state once again trying to, one size fits all. Then you
Kind of
guys
doing
have
that
to
because
put
that's what
enough.
the feds tell them to do on this
Correct.
round of funding.
And this is, that is a good point, is that this is it's a law, it's a federal law mixed with a little bit of a state backing, but it is largely based in Title 4E, which is federal.
All right, and then the contracts just from February of this year till June 2026, and then all of that information that you guys have is going to be good for 5 years.
Yes.
Correct?
So then the next portion, like we said, would be, and Chief and I talked a little bit about, if we really need the help with the progress reporting. So if we do need help with the progress reporting, you may see us bring an amendment back. But as it stands right now, that would cover us all the way through the self-assessment, the stakeholder group, the self-assessment, and then the SIP plan creation from February to June of 2026.
I just really appreciate your shopping around, saving as much money, short-term and long-term for Lassen County.
Thank you.
Because not only saving money, but when you save staff time, that's more money saved, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And, I gotta give Melissa credit and Deputy Gold, because they worked really hard on getting the list from the state of what would be approved vendors, so we didn't have to fight on that end.
That's cool.
And then on top of that, then Melissa went and shopped them all. So we brought back several different proposals, and this one seemed to be the most comprehensive for us.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approve the agreement with Social Change Partners and authorize the CAO or designated executive.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor Alba, second by Supervisor Scanlon. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back up here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, G11, Supervisor Alba.
I made a mistake on that, so it wasn't, what I thought was, so we'll carry on. So I would move approval, acceptance of GLI.
You gotta make the motion.
I did, I moved acceptance.
Oh, you made the motion? A second?
I second it.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
My bad. I thought it was in there.
Okay, so at this point in time, we will take a 1 hour break. So, at 1:30, we will resume. Okay.
See how you are?
And then your vibrating machine.
Yeah, I'm just full of shit.
I don't know if this is, can I pause it? I can't pause it, I just gotta stop it.